Hey, Sean here. So I'm just going to go over some tips for Mythic Painsmith from Elemental Shaman point of view. So right off the bat, I will say post nerf this fight is easily doable as Necrolord. Any Covenant really, if you have to be Kyrian, Venthyr, or whatever. Doable from really any Covenant now. It's very easy to do as range now, so I wouldn't really worry too much about that. If you want to stay Necrolord, perfectly fine. However, I did prog on this before the nerf. We did kill it post nerf, but I am still Night Fae since I am eventually going to switch to Enhance since it does more damage single target, things like that. Um, but yeah, for now, I do recommend going Night Fae. The Soulbind you're going to play is Karain, even though the boss obviously is not 70, above 75% for most of the fight. It does you will get full benefit out of it in P1. It helps a lot with spike balls, and it helps a pretty good amount with Shadow Suit Horrors, although making that damage check isn't too important anymore. Mainly it's just for the spike balls. With Karen, you really just hard shit on the spike balls. It's really good for them. And that is kind of your main job in this fight. Ellie Shaman is one of the best for killing spike balls, because it's pretty much every other ball set you will have Stormkeeper up, and when you do have Stormkeeper up, you just kind of dumpster the balls. Like you'll do 100k plus to them um, very quickly, and without very any really any significant damage loss at all, as opposed to most classes having to switch or maybe save resources for them. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and play through the fight here. So there's a lot in this fight as a ranged. You obviously have the hard job compared to melee. I did prog on it a little bit as enhanced, and like it's just night and day how to play this fight. So you're gonna do the standard opener here. Um, if you are Necrolord, I do recommend going Tumbling Waves as always. Really good on this fight. If you get a refund, obviously save a charge for the balls here. As soon as the balls come out, depending on your damage, if your damage on the balls isn't that high, I definitely recommend flame shocking them, or flame shocking the one you're gonna kill. That way you can lava burst it. If not, you should still have ice fury charges here, so you can just literally just use all your ice fury charges that you still have on the uh, on the ball that you're gonna kill. Um, as the balls are rolling away, make sure you do flame shock one of them, just for extra procs and Maelstrom generation. Besides that, make sure you're like, and if you don't have chains, just stay in melee for the most part. Um, I also highly recommend getting the My Raid Marker Weak Aura. It makes it really easy to identify what marker you have. That way you can run out there very quickly and not cause any bumps or anything like that. Um, so for the second spike balls here, you'll see Stormkeeper's back up. So also, the way it'll line up is you'll still have some Ice Fury charges left. Generally, like before the spike balls come up, I try to just like even though it's not completely optimal, I try to just get rid of all my Frost Shock charges like ASAP because you're not really gonna you're gonna focus on using your Stormkeeper shit on this and Earth Shocking, so you're not really gonna have any time to Frost Shock at all. So as soon as Spike Ball comes out, then Flame Shock, um, Lava Burst, if you don't have a moat prepped. Otherwise, you're gonna instantly lightning bolt, and then you're gonna lava burst, earth shock, depending on your maelstrom, and then do your last stormkeeper remote that shit as well. Also, small thing. So Chaos Bane's really annoying on this fight because of the intermission. Obviously, to do really good damage, you need your Chaos Bane to proc on like at least one ad set, ideally both. The way this phase tends to go though, and depending on your haste levels and just general luck, since this tier set is god awful from a gameplay perspective, uh, what you want to do is if you go into the intermission at 10 stacks or more, um, it's probably going to proc during the intermission. There's nothing you can do. So at that point, just try to focus on generating. So also, so the intermission is going to take a bit to discuss. Obviously, it's going to take a while for you to learn it, no matter what class you are or anything like that, even after the nerf. But like generally, what you want to do, obviously, stay with the group. Try not to go ahead too much. If you see like right there, so like it was, I could have obviously gone forward, but it's a little bit riskier to do so. And you just want to play to live in the intermission generally. There's literally no reason to rush ahead. and especially as Shaman, you can easily catch up to the group if you're forced to go backwards. So like I would always, in situations like what just happened, I would definitely just go backwards along the vertical line instead of forward. You'll just live like 10 times out of 10, as opposed to like 8 times out of 10. Sometimes maybe you lag or you're a little bit too slow, and you get splashed by the embers there. Um, so yeah, and generally, as when you're in the intermission, this applies to everyone. You always want to go like back towards the spikes that you just dodged through. You never want to go like towards the new set because you'll oftentimes just not have any room. On this like left, right, left, you're generally gonna want to stay here. You're not really gonna move. That was like an easier one. Sometimes you get some really awkward ones where it's kind of tight, but just the important thing is not to panic, which obviously is easier said than done, and you'll get more comfortable with this as you just do the fight. But just realize that you actually have a lot more time than you think you do, and you just need to play this like very cool and collected. As long as you don't panic, you won't make the mistakes that will usually kill you during this intermission. So you'll see we just play it through, and um, I would also, if your Chaos Bane procs, just make sure you're flame shocking the spike balls and you're using instant cast lava surges. Don't worry about this like the first like half of your progress. Start doing like once you're comfortable with the intermissions, then you can start doing this. I would just fully focus on living the intermission first. Once you're, like I said, once you're comfortable with living intermission and you're pretty confident in the timings and everything, then start flame shocking and generating maelstrom during this phase because you want to have enough maelstrom to cast an earthquake as soon as the ads drop. And ideally, you also have that earthquake moded, so you do need to cast a lava burst at some point during this phase, instant cast or not. But besides that, like I said, just focus on living here and take things slow. Make sure you're never really going ahead of the group. Stay with the group. Obviously, make sure you have a focus gate macro. Really important here. Don't try to click it. Like it's so stupid when people like try to claim that they don't need it. Yeah, you don't need it. You don't need weak ores. You don't need add-ons. Just do it. Stop complaining and use the mouse over macro. So when you get here, you're obviously going to stay still. You're going to drop the Earthquake like right before they land. That way your GCD is ready to immediately chain lightning. You're chain lightning, Earthquake again, Earthquake again, and then you can do one cast of chain lightning on the boss, and then instantly drop an Earthquake, and you'll get like 2 ticks, usually, depending on how good your AoE damage is here. So this is the hard part of the fight to play as ranged, mechanically. It is a lot easier now with the changes to not having to use your movement during the intermission, because you can just, if you're Night Fate, for example, you can just blink over these spike balls and it's much easier. So kind of the way you want to play this is you are kind of at the mercy of the intelligence of your other range players. So generally right here, what you would want to do, this is like this is an easy set to play through as far as dealing with chains. Like, so you'll see ideally, yeah, there you go. So the person in the lead, so like the person at the top of the orientation, if that makes sense. I'm not really sure how else to describe it, but basically, like if we like switched around and I was like the top part of the slant, I guess you could call it, of chains, then you would blink over first. You can notice that Diamond already blinked over it, which was what he was supposed to do to give room to the second person. Um, and now I'm pretty free to just blink over as well, and that's how easy that is. And then obviously the best way I can recommend for you to deal with spike walls, and of course this applies to everyone, is you wait at a tile and you wait until the tile or the tile column adjacent to what you're waiting on is like the spikes go off. As soon as the spikes go off, you walk through. You don't want to like try to like just continuously walk like through tiles because like it's just too much input. You'll lose damage and like there's a higher chance of just fucking things up. Um, so another big thing is, which wasn't really an issue on Heroic, which kind of ended up being an issue on Mythic, at least for me, because I have really bad eyesight. If your guild tends to drop a lot of CDs for like traps when you have walls coming, like we do, like so you see you see there's a clusterfuck going on right now, right? Like for me, because I play on low graphics as well, and I just have really bad eyesight, like I have astigmatism, keratoconus, shit like that. It's really hard for me to see things. just in general. So for me, seeing the spike walls, like the blue outline, which is great job, Blizzard, by the way, making a one-shot mechanic that is very difficult to see. Um, what I recommend for you to do, instead of looking like at your feet for the spike walls, look like, okay, so you see the wall there, look like way to like the left of where I am right now. Look that way instead of looking at your feet, as far as like for knowing the timing. Because if you look at your feet, like, can you honestly, like right now with my graphics, like even if you had way better eyes than me, can you see that blue line? I mean, yeah, you can, but just barely. Like, there's no fucking way. Like I usually like got like lost and like couldn't tell which row it was about to pop on because I was like looking at that instead of looking like way to the left, and you can obviously see the outline like very clearly way to the left. So don't look at your feet, look way to the left or way to the right, all the way down the column to be able to tell when the spike wall is coming. And then if you don't have chains when the balls spawn, make sure you're like kind of hugging them. In this phase, there's a lot more room, but it is still pretty tight, so you don't want to be more than a tile or two away from the spike balls. And obviously, your job in this phase is to blast the balls, so make sure you're instantly switching to them and nuking them with Stormkeeper, Frost Shocks, whatever. Um, as far as Spirit Walker's timing, I would recommend doing it if you get chains or for moments like these would be the best. Spirit Walker's defensives, you want to use them exclusively if you get chains. You don't really need to use defensives otherwise. Just only use them when you get the chains. Save Earth Lily for P3 chains if you get those. But yeah, you can use Hellstones, Hell Pots as the raid leader calls for them, or as you see fit. Usually, the only time you'll ever have to do them though is if during traps or what do you call it during P3 when you're far from the healers as a chain player. Uh, and so yeah, that's kind of how you want to play P2. It is kind of overwhelming at first. Will not lie. Like people that like have already killed the boss and done like 100 plus pulls on them, they'll be like, "Oh, it's not that bad." It is that bad. It is easily the hardest fight as a ranged player in the instance to play. Um, so just don't feel frustrated if you're fucking up a lot. Pretty much everyone will have probably one bad night on this boss. I've seen it happen to really good players, really good players that reported, yeah, I fucked up a lot one particular night. It's going to happen probably. Do your best to make sure it doesn't happen. Try to learn from mistakes of others, but don't feel frustrated if it happens. But also don't just give up and be like, oh yeah, it's a hard fight. Nothing really I can do there. Like always try to figure out what you can do. Like for example, like for me, seeing that particular spike wall was very difficult. Like I said, that's why I specifically gave out tips on better ways to deal with it because I personally just couldn't see it, and I kind of like one night it just tilted the shit out of me that I couldn't like my just eyes weren't good enough to see it, and like I kind of gave up. Um, but then like a pull or two later, like I kind of like thought, okay, what can I do to like get around that? And I came up with a very simple idea: just look away down the column, and I can actually see it now. Just simple things like that on a hard boss like this is really important to keep in mind. Like, um, you can feel frustrated, you can feel angry at if you fuck up or anything, but don't like tilt and give up. That's the most important thing. Just keep like a strong outlook. Think about anything that you can do to survive, no matter what it could be, so that you can help your raid team secure the kill. So yeah, like I said, obviously see me here generating Maelstrom and everything. You can also another good time to Spirit Walkers is if you like you kind of fuck up or you're behind on Maelstrom in this phase. You can Spirit Walkers towards the end when you're about to bait, get some casts off, get enough Maelstrom and Stormkeeper a little bit earlier, because then that'll mean you'll have Stormkeeper usually at a better time for the spike balls instead of a little bit before, a little bit after. It usually just kind of helps out if you do that. But it's 100% not necessary. You can still parse very well not doing that. Um, and then, yeah, I can't remember if I mentioned it fully, but yeah, if you get like, so if you're like 8 or 9 Chaos Bane stacks going to intermission, that means you can definitely have Chaos Bane for the ads. So in that case, you want to try to cast as many spells as possible during the intermission, like cast Ghost, like shifting out of Ghost Wolf a lot, Healing Surge, Flame Shock, Instant Cast, anything you can do. Excuse me, really to cast anything will give you high Chaos Bane stacks. Obviously, this set bonus is incredibly RNG. You may just sit at like the same stacks forever. You may just instantly go from 11 to 15, which I've had happen during the animation, which is very frustrating. But um, just kind of you can play around it, so you should try to play around it as much as you can, but don't feel like it's not the end of the world if it doesn't proc. You still do pretty well. Like I've had pulls where I had to proc on both sets, and I was doing insane, but we obviously didn't kill at that pull. This is like one of my lower pulls, and it was still rank 2, um, even though I had like not great RNG. Like I had 7% or shot crit on this pull, so yeah, just try to do what you can to optimize where you can. As far as P3 goes, obviously the way you do it, I don't think I get chains actually on our kill here, but so the way you want to play this is obviously this again applies to every range player. If you get the chains here, you're just gonna go straight back away from the spike balls, like you can see them going off screen now. You go straight back in your line. Do not like do any weird like movements or anything. Just literally turn opposite of the spike balls and walk straight back. Don't worry about casting, don't worry about anything. That is the one thing you need to get right in this phase. If you don't do that properly, you will wipe the raid. So just focus on that. Um, Even if the spike balls are coming out, obviously your damage is very important on the spike balls, but it's more important to make sure the raid doesn't die here. So if you can't hit the spike balls or anything, don't worry about it. Just hit the boss. If it's like too much to handle, like trying to target it in the mess of nameplates or whatever, um, just make sure you get that job done specifically. Obviously, if you don't have chains, make sure you are tight on the balls here. You need to be literally like a tile or a tile and a half away from the balls. Otherwise, you might get fucking one shot. Besides that, it's actually easier to play through mechanically as a ranged. If you get the chains after you do the straight back move that I mentioned, you still want at least one person to blink over just to make the movement easier getting through. So in that regard, it's kind of like P2, the way you play that through. Um, Besides that, like I mentioned, oh, I do get chains here. Okay, cool, cool. So you get to see the movement. Um, so this is when you want to save like all your defensives here. This is like really bad. You can see it. Like I went straight backwards, stayed in our orientation. I'll hit the spike balls a little bit here, but I'm focused on living. You can see I Earth Elliot, I Health Pot, I still have Health Stone. I used Astral Shift as well, so I used literally everything, which you kind of have to do to survive here. And also that's how you want to play the chains. You just want to stay in the middle. Don't go like too close to melee, and then just gradually make your way back as that times out. Oh, also one thing I didn't note mention, this applies in P2 and P3. When you see the chain timer coming in, like you see chain 3 coming out, you want to like kind of cheat outside. You can see like I'm more towards the center of the room as opposed to like literally right on the boss. You want to do this so if you get change, you can immediately move out early. Um, and then yeah, so we get the kill here. This was actually kind of close, kind of scary. We had a bunch of people just not move because we thought the boss was dead. You don't want to do that. Just play the fight through all the way completely. But yeah, so like I mentioned, this was obviously probably the hardest fight mechanically as a range player in the instance. Even post nerf, it is still a bit overwhelming at first. So like I said, don't get frustrated. Hard fight, and obviously just try to optimize your damage as much as possible using the tips I gave you. Hopefully this helped. If it did, like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. But thank you for watching, and once I kill Guardian Free Scribe, we'll have those up soon as well. Hopefully this week. Later.